Well, I am joined by Howard Snooks, a real legend. He's at the young age of 76. He's made quite a new path for himself. He's a doctor of psychology, correct?
Clinical social work.
Clinical social work,
Yeah.
and we're going to get into that. But he has quite a following on social media, and a lot of what he pushes is talking about positive sexuality, which is a beautiful topic that I obviously bring in a lot, and especially with somebody at your age. I mean, it's so interesting to see a positive male figure like you talking about those things. But before we get into that, I want people to get a little glimpse into your life, into your past, into what led you to where you're at right now, which is you're a commercial actor, you're a male model, and that path was obviously not always, where you've been. You were a doctor.
Right.
So yeah, I guess just give people a little glimpse into how you got to where you're at.
Okay. Yeah, I had a 45-year practice as a psychotherapist, mostly here in Boulder. And then one year I decided to retire. And right after that, my wife decided she was going to divorce me. In addition to this, this was the year 2015. In addition to that, my father died that year at age 93. It's not like he had a short life, but it was unexpected. My older sister died. She had multiple myeloma and had gone into remission, but came out of remission, and she passed away. And I had an uncle who died suddenly as well. So all these things had happened just, in a pretty short period of time.
This is all 2015?
2015.
Wow.
And then just by chance, I was separated at the time, and I met an old friend from high school. She wasn't my girlfriend, but we were close friends in high school. And I'd gone down to my uncle's funeral down in Durango and just ran into her on the street. And so we sort of developed a relationship. And then at Christmas time, we were together, and although she had a summer home in Durango, she lived down in Texas, outside of Lubbock, Texas, about 45 miles or so, in a dirt road, old cotton farm. And I was with her on the cotton farm, and I forgot something in her car. So I went out to the garage, and it was a blizzard. It was kind of late at night, blizzard. It was really a weird night. And somehow I misstepped or something, and I tripped and fell into a weed whacker, which was sort of parked in the garage right on the wall. And somehow, I'll never understand what happened, but I snapped off the ball of socket of my hip joint.
Whoa.
And so there I was, kind of trapped
in a blizzard,
in a
outside,
blizzard, 45 miles in this country road, and no one really could come get me. An ambulance couldn't get me, Flight for Life. No one could come, so I was just there. I surprised. She didn't even know I was in the garage. I had to go Revenant style, kind of climb to the door, pound on the door. So I made it through that night. It was quite painful, but I just lay on the floor. She got some pillows and had some whiskey for me to drink to help me through. And the next morning, the sun came out, and a plow came along. So we got plowed out of her long driveway, then 10 miles on a dirt road in back of the plow, then on the highway, which was just like full of bumps from the blizzard. So it was like bump, 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 and I could see them coming, and it was so painful and anticipating pain is not that much fun. So anyway, I had emergency hip replacement surgery in Lubbock, Texas, and then had to stay there in rehab for 10 days afterwards, just because you can't get on a plane after you've had serious surgery like that, because of a pneumothorax could develop. So I get home, and I go, man, I need a sign from the universe. All these things have happened. My whole life has totally changed just in the course of a few months. And what sign, Well, I happened to be reading the Denver Post. That was back when they actually had a newspaper that you read at the kitchen table. And they had this article about how they needed baby boomer models, that the demographic was still big. The baby boomers still bought lots of stuff, but there weren't any models to sort of help sell this stuff. So I thought, well, maybe that's my sign from the universe. Mm-hmm. So I I just went and got training, and I got an agent, and I got a portfolio.
Had you thought about being a model before then?
Never.
You
No,
just, so
no.
you're in the hospital, you saw this ad.
Well, I was actually home by
Okay.
this point. Yeah.
But you've had this sort of dark night of the soul kind of year.
Yes.
Is this still in 2015?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, this was it was New Year's.
Okay.
When this happened. It was New Year's
Trippy.
Eve when
Okay.
this happened. Yeah.
Interesting. So then you just had maybe one of the most shot years you could imagine.
Right.
And then you get this new path that opens up to you as far as modeling. And what inspired you to make a move on that?
Well, partly it was, I don't want to go into detail, but it was partly things that my wife said to me when she was divorcing me, how she had contempt for me and she had never loved me and things like that.
Oh my God.
They were, very cruel things to say. And so I think that's partly what inspired me. Well, I actually am a pretty fit old guy.
Yeah.
That's
You're high value. And your
Right.
wife is wrong.
Right. It was sort of like she is wrong about that. That is,
Yeah.
she's wrong.
The world's
about it.
going to see.
And so that's kind of partly what drove me to do that. So that is kind of interesting.
And there's something so beautiful in that from the depth psychology lens of like that there's a meaning in the pain. That pain is like pointing you in a certain direction, where for you it's like all that venom your wife told you, maybe that's like again what inspired you to be like, I'm gonna prove her wrong. I'm going to step out into this vast unknown territory. How old were you at that point? In your mid-60s? Or
I think I was 66.
66.
Yeah.
Becoming a male model, taking that jump at 66. That's, again, I haven't heard of anyone else doing it, and you're killing it actually right now.
Well, I mean, I think I might have aged out some now, just because when people that want commercials, they want someone who's 76. They probably want somebody for a health commercial or something like that. And so I may not fit anymore in terms of where I stand in terms of fitness and what they are looking for. So I've done a few auditions, but I haven't really done much. And the modeling I've sort of let go at this point. I mean, I would still do it again, but
it served its purpose for you.
It served its purpose.
And again, you had that something that needed to be expressed,
Yes.
as far as recognizing your value, putting yourself out there, taking that jump.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. So this is, again, 2015, you take that step to become a model. And then what's your path?
Well, I built my Instagram following. It's sort of surprised. I didn't really expect it would get big, but it did get big. And then I just decided I'm going to live my life the way that I want to live.
Yeah.
So a big thing that I do is I belong to this club here in Boulder called the Highland City Club. And that really is very helpful. It's very interesting people from all around the world come there. It's sort of a crossroads type of club. So very interesting people who really think about things. And so it's really been an inspiration to me in many ways.
Yeah, and I've been there once actually, just with Yavel, the guy who runs the studio.
Yeah.
It is a really interesting place. And so we've talked about this before, and I think it's really potent. This notion of positive sexuality and just recognizing that you're a doctor of social work. You have quite a background in psychology.
Yes.
And I'm curious what that means to you. What is positive sexuality? I'm curious also maybe if there's positive sexuality, is there negative sexuality? What is that?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's, like the world isn't divided up into good and bad, positive, negative, but it's a good way to start talking about something. I think it's useful. So I guess I'll start with, Freud had the original drives. He said were the sexual drive and the aggressive drive. And when you kind of boil that down, what does that really mean? A sexual drive is those things where people connect and have relationships and interact with one another. That's what drives that sort of interaction. And the aggressive drive is what keeps you a singular person, keeps your own individuality. It keeps you, it's how you're separate from a person. So I think that's a useful way to think about it. And then it sort of enlarges the idea of what positive sexuality is. And I think positive sexuality is whatever you do about, your sexual behavior isn't exactly it. It's that is done to further human relationships, further connections, to further a sense of internal well-being, and also to enhance someone else's sense of well-being. That's what I think that positive sexuality is. And I guess negative sexuality, it's, anytime you see someone, a predatory person, that is negative. There's a lot of predatory behavior out there. And then there's also just like taking advantage of someone, like not being authentic.
Those sort of energy leeches. Like, it reminds me of sort of like the club scene. Like, just people get drunk and are like hunting. You know what I mean? And it's like, why? What are you looking for? You're looking for some validation. It's like, oh, I'm good enough because I can pull shorties. Like, really, what's going on? Like, why? Yeah. Do you wanna connect? Do you want to drink that nourishment that is connecting to open hearts? You know what I mean? Or do you want to hunt and get that kind of very heady validation? And I think that's so common in our culture when the masculine, well, we'll just say so many are really deeply wounded emotionally. And so recognizing that the masculine may be trying to heal itself just in the wrong way. Instead of actually finding the courage to open our hearts as men, so many would rather just hunt, get that validation. Energy sucks. And it turns into that weird predatory rapey culture, which I think everyone is fucking sick of. I would hope. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people still in it, but just recognizing that there's another way where we don't have to necessarily shield our hearts from people. We can be vulnerable, and we're not going to get hurt if you learn how to trust yourself, learn how to trust the right people. And there's such a deep healing, I think, sexually and just in the deepest parts of the being when we can really be connected with others, hold each other in our vulnerability and in our expression. And again, I think that's a lot of the time what's missing and what could be coined as negative sexuality, this kind of lifeless, parasitic, weird expression of human sexuality, which is innately just guarded. And on the, other hand is the positive form of sexuality, which I think is what we really need to learn to connect with. And I think that starts with, again, vulnerability with ourselves, with other people, and being courageous as men and women to bare ourselves to others, to not be afraid of what happens when I open my heart. And you being an older man, I'm curious, having the life that you've lived and connecting with older folks as well, have you seen just people being able to, I guess, open to that depth a little bit more with age?
Well, I would say I have met some people that have been able to do that. I don't even know if I am able to do that so well myself. Like I thought, it's not like I don't think I have negative sexuality, but that whole business of actually going through developing a relationship with someone and like dealing with their quirks and dealing with this and that. And the older you get, like, anyway, I get sort of like, I don't want to go through that again, sort of thing. So I've remained a single man. I've had 3 very important relationships with women since my divorce. None of them worked out, but I'm so glad I had them. But they didn't end up resulting in a permanent relationship.
And I think that's a beautiful point for me. I mean, this is obviously the spiritual fuckboy podcast.
Right.
And so there's something about kind of reclaiming that name where we have this conditioned belief in this culture. If you're not going for the deep monogamous lifelong relationship, something's wrong with you. Let's heal you. Let's open your heart more deeply. And for me, it's like, just like you, I mean, obviously we have different lives, but I've been so deeply wounded by the feminine so many times to the point where it's like, if I get my heart broken, if I really open myself to somebody and it doesn't work out and it turns toxic or it just doesn't work out, it can cripple me, like my whole being. And I'm like, do I want to do that? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Versus what's the value of casual, intimate relationships? And this is something that I've actually been playing in my mind for a while. Because, like, I'm not necessarily hunting. I'm not seeking the validation by just, again, pulling shorties. I'm, like, looking for that nourishment. And for me, it's like, do I forego the casual relationships with women for the sake of, for me, just, like, not hurting them? Because for a lot of women that I found, not all of them, definitely, but there's an expectation of, oh, if this is good enough, it'll lead to monogamy. And yeah, maybe that's true. But for me, I've been in certain dynamics where I've been so in my integrity. And like, there's a feeling of deceit in me when I know I'm not in that place, when I'm kind of being slightly dishonest or kind of hiding some things.
Yeah.
And recently, in the past few years of my life, I have not felt that. I've been so in my integrity and telling these girls, like, yeah, like, I don't feel, this way about you, meaning, I don't want to have a monogamous relationship, but I still love hanging out with you. I love your energy. I love the time we spend together. And I'm down to keep doing that. And they're like, oh, yeah, definitely. Like, you don't have to make that choice now. And it feels like sometimes I'm like leading these girls on unconsciously. And then I end up like really hurting these people I really care about when I'm like, I'm not down to commit like that. And it sucks. And then I'm like, what do I do here? Do I just forego the casual relationships?
Well, like one thing I observed about like guys your age or even a little older is polyamory is a thing that kind of happens a lot nowadays, it seems like to me. And I just would say when I was in my 20s, there just was hardly any such thing as I mean, there were probably some, but it's sort of like, this person's polyamorous, what's wrong with them or something. And now is it really an accepted part of the culture? But you're saying there are problems about polyamory too, because if people don't understand what that means, or if they're not in sync.
And I would love to actually stay with that a little bit longer about this notion of polyamory and monogamy. And for me, it seems like we've been societally conditioned, and through religion, we've been conditioned to think, oh, what is right objectively is a man and a woman together for life. That's the goal. And a lot of people, I think, operate from that place unconsciously, where it's just so deep in our culture that we don't even see that this is sort of a belief. And for me, I kind of have oscillated between like really wanting monogamous dynamics and then being open to polyamorous dynamics. And recently in my life, like just with just certain things happening, I've been meeting a lot of really amazing, beautiful people and really coming to this recognition that I love multiple people at once. And I never, at first I was like, polyamory is sort of some woo-woo new age type shit. And like, for me, it's just, I'm just playing the field. And only recently have I really come to this point of reflection where I'm looking at these relationships and I'm really playing in my head. And one of my friends was like, how many of these girls have you said, I love you to? And I was like, oh shit, is she calling me out right now?
Yeah.
And I thought about it and I was like, wait, I actually do love all of these chicks. Like, there's no fucking question. I know what love feels like. And it's definitely there. So now I'm like, oh, polyamory is a real thing. But obviously, if you're going to engage in polyamorous dynamics, like, let's just say pros and cons is not the best way to describe it, but there's going to be different difficulties. You know what I mean? I guess pros and cons is kind of accurate, actually. So for me, it's like, are you comfortable with letting that other person really get their needs met sexually, emotionally from other people? Like, what comes up for you? What comes up for me when that's happening? And it's not necessarily hidden, you know, when there isn't that need for deceit and to hide things. And for me, it's like, that is such a crucible for deep internal work. As far as what happens for me, this jealousy of, oh, mommy left me and now I'm not enough. I always knew that. You know, it's like, what comes up, that sense of lack, that sense of jealousy, that sense of comparison to another person. It's like, and for me, there's something very deeply actually spiritual when I examine that, where it's all of these people, everyone here is another face of the divine. And who am I to judge them? And why would I? And I am a face of the divine. And am I going to judge myself? Am I going to say, oh, I'm not enough? When these girls love me, like, and they can love other people too. And there's something so freeing about that.
Well, you know, one thing I think of that can happen is, let's say somebody gets a huge crush on you and they're just like crush. And then they go, man, you know, I really want to go out with this guy. I just want to be, you know, really close with him. And you say, well, you know, I'm polyamorous, you know, I love lots of, and this person with a huge crush might go, well, I'm willing to risk it. You know, I really do want a monogamous relationship, but I'll go along with this because I think I'll be able to talk him into falling in love with me. I think that's where some hurt feelings and some feelings of betrayal and stuff can happen.
And that's the thing. So, I mean, there's 2 points in that. First, like, is it my responsibility to sense that in somebody? Because I kind of can sense it. But it's like, if they're telling me like, it's cool, and I'm like, I'm down to keep hanging out, is it my responsibility to cut off the relationship? And this is, we're in a place beyond objective right and wrong, but I don't want to hurt people that I care about. Let's put it like that, because it literally hurts me. I'm not about it. Like, my heart is too open. And I've come to points in my life where I'm just not okay with it. And thus I sort of, again, forego those casual relationships. But again, I think those feelings of betrayal, that hurt that somebody can experience when, for instance, I'm not going to commit completely to them. Like, again, that's such a crucible for growth. And I hate to say it because I feel like people are just going to like hate on me for it. But it's like, again, what is coming up in you? Just like what came up in me in these dynamics, learning how to hold ourselves. And this is where the psychotherapeutic lens is really helpful. It's like, what am I pushing away? Are these feelings of jealousy not allowed? These feelings of lack not okay? Can I learn to hold all of these parts of my being, all of what we could call these wounded children in me that just want to be held? And as long as I keep them at arm's length, we're saying this jealousy isn't okay. This feeling of lack is not okay. I'm keeping this wounded part of me just at arm's length, and it wants to be integrated. It wants to be held. It wants to be loved. And that's the thing. So again, I hate to say it, and I feel like some people will not like to hear this, but it's like, maybe that what comes up in somebody else can be that real deep catalyst for growth if we know how to handle it. And the way I look at it, psychotherapeutically speaking, is like when we have those intense experiences, when something gets triggered in us, that's almost our demons coming to light. The demons are showing themselves. And in a very poetic way, I think then we can channel an archetype like Archangel Michael. And we can literally kill that shit when it's out there. And how do you kill it? With love, with kindness, with holding it. There's something deeply prophetic in that imaginal experience of letting those demons come up, recognizing, okay, there's nothing wrong with them. Now that they're here, now what? And being able to hold them. And then what happens when we can purify that jealousy, when we can come back to that wholeness within ourselves?
Well, here's my thought about what you just said, that it's an example. What is positive sexuality in this situation? And to me, that's where it's communication, which, I would say in my practice, every single couple who ever came in to see me, 100% said, we have a problem in communication. I mean, it just happens that way. And it was absolutely right. So
did you work with couples?
I did work with couples.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I did. I did a variety of things. And I also did custody evaluations, which was a tough part.
Yeah, I bet.
But it's the whole, are you doing your own separate work inside yourself about this? And is this the woman doing the separate thing? Or are you communicating in some way, sharing, being honest and all that? Because that to me would be where the connection happens. Like, you may agree that you're not going to be a couple, but if you communicated that, then it seems like it's respectful and it's giving credence to and honoring the other person.
Exactly. And in relationship, and again, these can be monogamous or polyamorous dynamics, it doesn't matter. Even platonic friendships, communication, being willing to have difficult conversations and to step into that discomfort, to step into actually vulnerability also. And I really believe and actually know vulnerability is our doorway into intimacy.
Yeah,
and if we are shielding our heart and we're afraid to be vulnerable, then why do you think you don't have those deep, intimate, really nourishing relationships? And again, this is not just sexual relationships. These are friendships. Can I share my darkness with people? Do I have that courage to let my demons out and to have it be held in community? And that's, I think, where especially the masculine is so wounded. We have this belief that any expression of vulnerability is a sign of weakness. And all of a sudden people are going to take advantage of me. My girlfriend's going to leave me. I'm just going to be alone because I'm weak. And that perspective fucks people up. It gets them trapped in themselves, and their hearts are closed to the world. And all of a sudden, and we wonder why, like, again, especially white men have the highest suicide rate by a lot nowadays. And I think it's because people are afraid of that vulnerability. And I think there's a natural reason for that, because so many people have been so deeply wounded by community, by others, by our parents, where we don't know how to open our hearts. And especially when we're very lonely, we don't have community that can help to support us, that can push us in that direction of finding that vulnerability.
Well, you're talking about how does trauma affect a person, in the arena of romance or the arena of relationships. And I'll just say back personally, I was totally oblivious to the fact that my ex-wife was thinking about divorcing. When she told me that, I was astonished.
Really?
I had no idea whatsoever.
So it was like, how long were you married?
34 years.
34 years. And then she just comes to you and is like, I never loved you.
I never loved you. I have contempt for you. And it was like, it was a cognate, just didn't make sense to me. Because I felt like I had been, like I shared my life with her. I shared who I was with her. Damn. And I thought that like at that point, I didn't feel vulnerable with her. I just felt like, we're a couple. And so I felt like such a fool after she said, I felt like an idiot. She humiliated me and did it just as like she was an expert at it. And it was just like it was a extremely traumatic experience. And so I did have to come out of that. But I had a good therapist, and that helped me a lot. And I had this dog, this little dog that sort of stuck with me during all of this. And even now, you asked what some of the stuff I do. I do foster dogs now. My dog Oso passed away about 4 years ago. So I've just been fostering dogs since then.
And that's a big thing too. I think when we think about human relationships, when often you get those four-legged creatures around, and all of a sudden we can be vulnerable with them.
Yeah,
they can open parts of us
we
can't get opened by human beings.
Like you can't help but wonder: are dogs better creatures than humans?
My mama would always say, like, dogs are the best people, and I think there's
something
true,
to it. Yeah.
But I'm like, why is that? I think, what do you see in a dog that people don't have? And I think it's that radical authenticity. Yeah. Dogs can't hide shit. When they feel ashamed, it.
Right.
When they feel angry, know it. When they feel happy, know it. And that's the thing about human beings. I think if we all have the ability to trust our hearts and be vulnerable with our authentic expression, that means all of our emotions. That means feelings of lack, shame, sadness, grief. If we can learn to let those out, I think people would love each other more, because you're giving people an opportunity to see you, to resonate with your expression, and then to be like, hey, actually, we're pretty similar. Maybe we should hang out, And it's like, and that's the thing. I think, again, so much of the darkness in the world, I think, is an inability to express unconscious, or either oppression or repression of emotions that has been conditioned for, who knows how long. I think a lot of it is religious. I think a lot of it is cultural. And I think a lot of the healing can come from recognizing that, hey, this is just conditioning. Are you sure you can't trust the anger in your heart? You sure you can't trust that grief? You sure you can't trust that shame? What if we could let it out and give, again, people the opportunity to connect with that?
It seems like a lot of problems in life are solved if you take risks, is what it seems like to me. Not like sometimes you should not be an idiot and take risks, but like you have to get out of that comfort zone they talk about. And we were talking earlier before we were live about rejection, how painful rejection is and what that's like. And you just have to steel yourself if you're going to try some of these things, communicating with people in a positive, sexually, positive way. The rejection might come your way.
And that's the thing. So rejection is one of those core wounds that we all have. We all have that from our primary caregiver in some way, shape, or form. There's going to be a fear of rejection and everything that comes with that. And in this culture today, I was talking about one of my good lady friends, and she was like, yeah, guys don't like hit on me. And she was having conversations with dudes, and the dudes are like, hey, have you ever thought about hitting on us? And I'm like, bro, what? Who's saying that? Like, that's just like, is just beta as fuck. It's like these guys got to get off the seed oils or something. I don't know, but
I have seen guys that women hit on them.
Totally.
I've
get
seen
hit
it.
on.
Sure.
And that's the thing. It's like there's not a right or wrong here.
Yeah.
But there's something about being able to step into that discomfort, especially as a man. Like, yo, now we're not like, fighting wars in the same ways, at least. We're not, hunting creatures in the woods in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to rise it to the occasion, actually to step into that fear. And it's so easy for people and, men included, to just fall back into the Netflix, hang out, I'm gonna smoke weed and just jack off, and like life's sort of chill, but something's missing, and I'm just gonna numb myself and hope it goes away. Yeah. And it's like a big part of just living life is stepping into that discomfort, stepping into that fear. And I think so many people are so lonely. And again, there's something so necessary about human-to-human connection. And we forsake that and we look to anything else. Hey, maybe Xanax will do it. Maybe I'll just drink until I can't feel anything. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll just scroll on Reels and hope that saves me.
Yeah, doom scrolling is kind of a big thing. Yeah, well, I think we're on to something about this. Like supposedly, and I would say just based on anecdotes, that dating is... nobody's dating anymore. Yeah. People don't go out. Yeah. They don't, or they may go out, but it's sort of a lonely.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it is fear of rejection, and I think it is also a pessimistic view about what's the chances? I've dated 25 women and none of them worked out. What's the chances I'm actually going to find one?
Right.
I think that's a big chunk of it.
And so that fear of rejection, it makes me think, like, as a man, as a therapist as well, because I'm, also a therapist. It's seeing how much life opens up for people when we can get over that fear of rejection. And are you sure you want to live your whole life and not step into the beauty of legitimately getting rejected? Because that's the thing. I've been rejected quite a bit, and I think it's good for me, to be honest. Because, I think I got pretty solid game. And when somebody rejects me, it humbles me. And it gives me that feeling of oh shit, I guess this is what it feels like to be rejected. And can I hold this? Can I hold this? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Through practice, you can say, yeah, I can. And I think it makes me think I would love to do men's groups. There's a movie about something like that. I forget the name, but it's just having guys just try to rizz up really beautiful chicks. And just fall on your face. Come back, regroup, we'll talk about it. And we'll hold each other together in that, and all of a sudden, how much would a young man's life open up when you can be held in your rejection by others? It's not a source of shame. You don't have to keep it as your big, deep, dark secret. You don't have to look down. Keep your chest up, head high. And you made that move. You stepped into that fear. And that rejection, that was the worst case scenario. And now if you can hold that, imagine the healing. Imagine you come back to your boys and you're like, well, at least you tried. Did you fumble over your words? What happened? Did you have a boyfriend? And it lights me up to think about how open, how loving people can be when we're not literally handicapped by fear.
Well, I think you have to overcome something, which is, many people do, which is there are these psychoanalytic theorists that came up with grim unconscious beliefs, which I really liked. I'm really worthless and I can pretend not to be, but if someone rejects me, that documents for me that I am worthy of being rejected. So somehow that's that self-love, I guess, is the thing. How can you listen to someone who has a criticism of you without being deeply ashamed of it? How can you love yourself in spite of, even if they're telling some truthful thing about you?
Yes. I love this. And this brings me to this notion of the impact that our stories have on us. Mm-hmm. So if I hold this story that I'm a loser, nobody likes me, if that's my belief about myself, then if I get rejected or even if I hear somebody laughing on the bus or something, the mind will take that data as a reaffirmation of this belief that we already hold. That is, oh, I knew it. I'm a loser. Nobody likes me. Whereas if I'm a winner, for instance, I hold that story. I'm a winner. I'm high value. Mm-hmm. When somebody rejects me, It just like my mind will go to, oh, they must have a boyfriend or they're in a bad mood, or, it's just not the time right now. And it is what it is. I'm still high value. And so what's going on there is the stories that we hold about ourselves are actually priming our consciousness to pick up on data in our environment that reaffirms that story. It's basically the confirmation bias in our mind. So working at the level of what's my story about myself? Do I have all this deep trauma? Do I have all this recognition of, my life isn't what I wanted it to be, and thus I'm a loser and I'm never going to be enough and everyone's so much better than me? Be careful about those stories, because if you really hold that, your mind is going to unconsciously find support for it. And that's the thing, we can work at the level of story to be like, what makes you think you're a loser and low value? Like, really, who told you that?
But you have to be like, I think you're talking about narrative type therapy. That's what you're talking about. And I think there's so much to that. But there's sort of interesting, like if you confront somebody about like, why do you think that? Like it makes them feel even more ashamed sometimes. Like somehow you have to get out, what is it really that you feel about it? Like what is there's an authentic piece to it in there somewhere that you have to help a person that it may not be, it's not correct that they are not worthy of love, but there's something that made them believe that. And that's where you need to go.
Exactly. And I'm so glad that you said that, because for me, coming from this Buddhist lens and doing a lot of narrative therapy, I work at the level of stories. Recognizing from the Buddhist lens, all of those stories are going to be equally made up. And we can make them whatever we want. But a lot of people are like, how do I shift my story from something self-destructive to something empowering? And for me, this is where it's sort of counterintuitive, where you actually have to completely accept the story that's operating, completely accept it right now. Learn to love my life as it is. Learn to love myself, even if I'm a loser and even if chicks don't like me, can I still love myself? And when you say yes, that love, that expansiveness, that actually loosens the stories, where the way I look at it is sort of like it's knots in the psyche, where the more that we resist our story, our narrative, and our belief, the more I say, fuck, this isn't okay, this hurts, get this away from me. The more I resist, the tighter these knots are going to get. Whereas when I can learn to open to and actually to love those stories, the knots get looser. And I can start to rewrite that narrative once I fully love and accept my story as it is. It's like the image that comes to me is like a Chinese finger trap.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're you try to pull that thing, and if you just keep pulling, you're going to rip it open, and it's just not going to work. And it's just the harder you pull, the tighter it gets. And only when we can actually move in the other direction, start to love the unlovable. How can I love that my life is fucked and I feel like a loser? How can I love that? And that's exactly it. It reminds me of Dante's Inferno, where the way to get out of hell is actually to crawl through Satan's mouth. As Marcus Aurelius said, the obstacle is the way. Go right into it and learn how to love it and to kill your demons with love. Literally, that's like that archangel archetype.
Yeah, it is.
Being able to see them, like when that jealousy comes up, when that fear comes up, when that lack and rejection or abandonment comes up, beautiful. The demons are showing their face to us, and now we can kill them through holding them. And that's like, again, in our culture today, especially in the current psychotherapeutic paradigm and the new age woke culture, we have this belief that if I feel jealousy, if I feel lack, if I feel pain of any sort, something's wrong with me. Let me find XYZ therapist. Let me do all the ayahuasca, and maybe I'll just take antidepressants just to top it off. And what if we listened to that pain? What if we could learn to hold it as it is instead of trying to numb it?
Well, I learned something from my dad, who he lived to be 93. He had a good long life, and when he was fine really up until he had a stroke and died. So he had a rich life, and he's one of those guys that got better as they got older. They got cooler and nicer and wiser. Like a fine wine. Yeah. So, but he ended up getting, what is that called when you have chicken pox and then you shingles? He got shingles when he was in his late 80s, and it got it in his eye. So it really is incredibly painful. And he was just sort of continuing on. His eye got all started looking weird and stuff. But I said, well, Dad, what's it like, to live with that pain all the time? Don't you feel trapped? He goes, you just learn to live with it, is what he said. And there's something about wanting to avoid pain that makes it worse. If it's physical pain or if it's psychic pain, if you avoid it, it ends up doubling or tripling the intensity.
And so what I've heard from Buddhist teacher Shinzen Young, he talks about this a lot. He says, so basically background, he's also a math professor. So he's really analytical and good with the equations. And so he made up an equation for this, which is that our subjective experience of suffering is going to be equivalent to the pain that we feel multiplied by how much we choose to resist that pain.
Oh, that's perfect.
Right. And him being a lifelong meditator, he talks about the profundity of that and how deep that it goes, even with chronic physical pain, where when you're deep in meditation, and let's just say you're on retreat and you're sitting, 8 hours a day for a week straight, your knees, your back, your hips, things hurt bad. And you're sitting, you can't move.
Yep.
And so you have this face-to-face, very close, direct encounter with pain and seeing how is my relationship to this pain creating it. And this goes to the depths of the Buddhist teachings, which is that it's all actually constructed in what you could call mind. And it's, for instance, pain is actually not separate from my relationship to it. The experience of pain is interwoven with resistance. And he says at a certain level in meditation, when you can really learn to open to your pain, and you can't try to open to your pain as a means of relieving it, because that's actually a subtle form of resistance. You need to completely allow it as it is. And when you completely allow it as it is, actually the experience of pain itself, physical pain, can completely fade to non-existent. Perception doesn't pick it up. Because actually, in order for us to feel anything pain-wise, and this is physical, emotional, spiritual, mental pain, we have to resist it. When there is no resistance, everything fades. It's sort of like the wind. In order to know that the wind is here, it has to hit the leaves, make a noise. It has to hit your face. It has to be some resistance to know it's there. And the same is true of pain. It's not there in the same way if we're not resisting it.
Yeah, that's a subtle and ironic point, don't you think, about what to do about pain?
Totally.
And we're talking about psychic pain here mostly, but I think that there's really
a deep overlap between psychic pain and
overlap.
Physical pain. I mean, at a certain level too, you maybe even can't distinguish the two, because how much of our physical disease is psychologically rooted?
Well, one thing, I did go through an episode of really severe pain for, I don't know, a couple of months. I had
Physical pain.
Yeah, I had a trapped nerve in my neck that was just like, it was just like, what, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is, well, it's a 10,
That sucks, yeah.
And so I had to learn to deal with it at that point. And so I learned something about pain and how you do kind of have to face it. I had an acupuncturist end up helping me the most. And partly it was, but once again, I think I couldn't do it all by myself. I needed someone or something to help me. That's where the connection comes in. We have a burden of dealing ourselves. We have to take responsibility for our pain. But part of that is this is not just a one-man job. That's one of the things I've decided in my old age, that these things are not one person job. You may not need a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a lover or a parent, but someone somewhere who can be of assistance to you, and that just makes a huge difference.
Totally. Finding that support from others. And this is where it's sort of a feedback loop where if we feel super lonely and isolated, it's so hard to reach out for connection. And thus it just gets worse.
Exactly. Withdrawal is one of the things. Like, it's like feeling trapped in your body when you have pain. I remember feeling trapped in my body. I'd always had a good relationship with my body, but boy, it was like, I am in a prison here. This pain.
Yeah. And for me, when I was really depressed years ago, like 7 years ago at this point, I just completely withdrew from all my friends. Because I was so ashamed of not being able to show up in the way that I really wanted to. And when I did that, it got so much worse. It's almost just like, a feedback loop of fear of being seen in my vulnerability and weakness, and thus I isolate. and that fear just gets stronger because you don't have that healing experience of really being like expressing your pain, expressing your weakness and your vulnerability to others that can hold you and say, hey, like, we still got you.
And, you know, your friends, I don't know in your particular case, but, you know, friends can go, guys, there's something wrong with Benjamin. I'm afraid he'll bite my head off if I say anything to him, you know, so there's that kind of double burden,
Totally.
you know.
And it makes me think of the necessity for deeper relationships and community, because a lot of the time, at least in my experience of friendship, you know, we're friends when things are good. I mean, this is in the past. And then when things get bad, what do? It's like, oh shit, can we hold each other in that? And there's this resurgence nowadays of like women's groups, men's groups, to really hold people in that vulnerability where we can come to each other and share the darkest shit that's going on for us and the healing in that.
Well, you've mentioned groups twice now. And so you're right. I learned to run groups late in my career. I hadn't really had training in groups, but boy, when I learned, at the time I spent a couple of years working at the university, the Student Health Service Psychiatry Clinic. And so I ran graduate student groups. And man, I was really so impressed with how effective groups are.
Dude, I love group therapies, like honestly so much more than doing one-on-ones. I love one-on-ones too. They're great, but like to see the connection between people, to see the vulnerability start to deepen that intimacy between people, and to see the resonances where somebody's sharing their shame and now someone's like, oh wait, that's very similar to my story. And then they can share their shame, something that they've been holding for so long. And what I've been doing recently is, so I work one day a week at an old folks home in Denver, actually.
Yeah, you
told
me that.
Yeah, and it's so rewarding. I've done hospice work in the past, but I do one-on-ones and I do groups there. So I just did like a 12-week DBT group. And one of my main focuses of the group was, well, first, yes, of course, we're learning DBT skills. Like this is a really effective style of psychotherapy, actually informed by Buddhism. But one of my main goals with any group, period, is to invite people into vulnerability through cultivating a container of trust. Because even in these old folks' homes, like, okay, let's just put it like this. Like, these people are retired. You know, they're not traveling a bunch. They're, you know, various ages, but they're living in an old folks' home. It's like summer camp. You know what I mean? It's just like you wake up and you see the same people every day, have the same meals. And at the same time, some of these people, a lot of these people are so lonely. And the question is why? And that's why, for me, cultivating that trust where people can start to share what's real for them, not to hide from the darkness, and actually beyond like just the DBT skills, but when people are really honest and connecting, and to see like the tears flow, someone to say, I have you if you need help. If you need help, reach out to me. And to, it's giving me chills because it's just so beautiful and it's so dark that is so rare today.
Well, man, that means that group is evolving.
Yeah.
You know, like nursing homes can be sort of hotbeds of drama and gossip and viciousness. They can really end up being that way.
It's like middle school, same shit, except, you know, different phase of life.
Like you think when you get older, you give that stuff up, but there's an opportunity to give it up. And I think that the group is a really great way to do that. Where the vulnerability thing, again, is what comes up.
And that's the thing. So vulnerability, it takes trust. And we, especially in this culture today, we're living in this paradigm that is just overall wounded and thus covering the heart. And that's the thing. It's sort of like a feedback loop where the more wounded people there are that are covering their hearts and acting out of that place of like coldness, the more other people have this just belief, this knowing that, oh, I guess I got to close my heart because everyone else is kind of a dick. And, and you know what I mean? And then like when we can open our hearts, all it takes is one person to open that heart and it spreads like a beautiful disease. And you see this in relationship. In my experience, when I'm in conflict with my partner and we're just like yelling at each other and nobody's right, we're just pointing the fingers. Eventually, it takes one person to open that heart and to melt and to connect and to say, I love you or I'm sorry. And all of a sudden that's an invitation for another person to open their heart. And that's the thing. That is like a prophetic level of courage where, yeah, I'm looking at all the darkness in the world and I'm going to choose to let my light out even in this darkness. I'm going to choose to potentially get crucified, metaphorically speaking, by the people around me, by the demons that are acting through them. And can I allow that? Because again, it'll spread. When you get one open heart, then others resonate with that. And actually, I think there's something deep about that as far as why we resonate with art and music and artistic expression. When somebody is really dancing and flowing, either as a performance or at a festival, when somebody is really riffing on the guitar, there has to be an open heart. If you're second guessing yourself, good luck riffing on the guitar. It's just not going to happen. Good luck dancing too. If you're all stuck in your head about, does this look good? I don't know. Are people into this? There's too much thinking. When the heart is open and you see somebody flowing from that place, it's an invitation for you to do the same. And that's where something like festivals can be so healing. When if everyone's on that wave, that again, that beautiful disease of an open heart can spread. And all of a sudden, everyone is encouraging other people to be radically authentic. And like I said, there's so much healing and medicine, not in like good feeling necessarily, but being honest and authentic with us and what's coming through us. And that includes pain, grief, like, you know, at dances in, you know, festival settings, I've been overtaken by tears and I've been sobbing. Where it's like the heart finally feels safe enough to let that grief out. And so much medicine in that when we live in such a dark, wounded world right now. And that's the thing. How do we heal each other? How do we heal each other? And this is a question that I've held for a while. It's like, how do we get that heart to open? And again, it's about connecting with that pain, I think.
Yeah. Well, in connecting with your relationship to yourself and your relationship to others.
Yes.
And I think that both, you can't neglect one for the other.
And we could say there's one view we could hold, that is our relationship to ourselves and our relationship to others are two different things. But actually we can hold a perspective that I think is equally as valid, where our relationship to ourselves is mirrored by our relationship to other people a lot of the time. And I think this brings me back to this conversation about polyamory and monogamy, where absolutely any relationship dynamic that we choose to engage in is going to hurt. It's going to be difficult. There's going to be conflict. There's no way around it. I don't think that exists. And I think there's something really beautiful in that, actually. But that's the thing. When we're in those deep spiritual, psychological crucibles, where we're being melted down and forced to reflect deeply, when we're in a lot of pain, what do? Do we point the finger at our partner and say, it's your fault? It's all your fault that you're just not perfect and you can't love me the way I need you to, and XYZ reason is wrong? Or do we point the finger at ourselves, not in the form of blame, but in the form of how I
got what I deserved somehow.
Right, exactly. So many people fall for this, I think, trap that is blame. It's either their fault or it's my fault. Can we move beyond that and recognize the vast web of causes and conditions are so much beyond what we can comprehend? Everyone's karma is different. Their upbringing, the society that they grew up in, their experiences, we can't track all that. So again, if for instance, if somebody's dad abused them and that's because their dad abused them or whatever, like, and all of a sudden you're dealing with their trauma, where do you point the blame? Like, is it their fault? Is it their dad's fault? Is it the society's fault that made them? It just, when you start to analyze it, you see how silly blame is. And that's blame on ourselves and that's blame on another. So recognizing, hey, this is just maybe the karma of us two coming together. And how do I hold that? How do I meet that? How do I reflect on that? And that's not to say we take all the blame, or quote unquote blame. We take all the reflection and refinement. It's not all our work. There's definitely a balance there where it's like other people's work as well. But can I start to inquire into my own experience as far as how am I torturing myself? And this is one of the main questions that I throw at people with Buddhism and meditation, is recognizing, yeah, the world out there, it kind of sucks sometimes and shit's not ideal. But how are you torturing yourself? And in Gestalt, which I love, Gestalt therapy, one of my teachers, really, he says to clients, you know, you're not depressed. You're actually depressing yourself. You're not anxious. You're actually making yourself anxious. You're not happy and elated. You made yourself elated. And that's the thing. It's a slight shift that makes people question, how am I depressing myself? Are there certain stories, beliefs, assumptions about success, failure, good, bad, that are actually creating the experience of depression?
Well, it's these kind of, that's, you say, I'm anxious. It's like that you're objectifying that feeling instead of it permeates inside you. It's like, that's a thing. And if I can get rid of that thing, then I'll be okay. But instead it is actually like it's created at every moment by your interacting with some uncomfortable feeling is what it is, I think.
I think so too. And it's so interesting just to talk about anxiety, where the physical somatic experience of anxiety is extremely similar, if not identical, to the experience somatically of excitement. They're the same thing. Actually, in my experience, they're the same thing with a different story operating in the background. Again, with anxiety, if I'm going, perfect examples of, I'm going to spit game to a beautiful girl. Do I feel excitement about, oh, this connection's going to be dope? Like, I'm really excited to like see what this person's all about. Or is it, oh, they're going to reject me. Fuck. And
I got to say the right thing.
Yeah.
If I don't say the right thing.
Don't mess up.
Right,
don't mess up. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like anxiety is actually, just like pain, inseparable from your relationship to it. And asking the question, how am I relating to that buzz in my chest? Those butterflies in my stomach, how am I relating to that? Are these okay? Are these beautiful? Do these have a place? Or am I pushing them away and actually fragmenting my being, where there's something that wants to be felt and actually heard in me, and I'm just saying that's not okay? And this brings me to what I really love about depth psychology, where the dominant psychotherapeutic paradigm says, oh, like if we have an unpleasant experience, we have to like try to fix that. And that's beautiful. I think there's like a real beauty and necessity in that path. But recognizing there's actually other ways of viewing and thus experiencing those negative things such as anxiety or depression. And in depth psychology, they talk about what they call the daimon, which is a Greek word for messenger, where, again, very closely linked to the word demon. But in this context, daimon can be that unpleasantness, that anxiety, that depression. And it's a messenger from God from this view that's actually trying to tell you something. For me, depression or anxiety, it can say many things, and that's actually up for us to decipher. It's a message from the divine directly to us. And, we can get input from other people, but you choose. What does this mean? For me, it was like, when I'm depressed, it was like, there's certain narratives and beliefs and stories operating about who I am, what I'm not, high value, low value, people don't like me, life is fucked, life is great. Certain stories are operating. And that's the thing. When I was in that depression, I now see it from, the depth psychology angle as a message saying, don't stop. These perspectives are hurting you deeply. Don't stop. Keep looking for new ones. And now I see that. But that's the thing. This was like very early in my spiritual development, where I still, let's just say, believed everything that I thought. And there's a lot of freedom that actually comes through this notion of recognizing just because you're having a thought in your mind doesn't mean you have to believe it. So the fact that, oh, I'm the shit, or oh, life is great, or life sucks and I'm low value, no one likes me, you don't have to believe all that.
Yeah, those are grim unconscious beliefs.
Yeah. And so can you say more to that topic of grim unconscious beliefs?
Well, it's just, I don't know. I'll give a classic example. It's called control mastery theory, and it's a psychoanalytic theory. But an example would be a child who grows up feeling like their parents' needs came first and that they had to sacrifice their needs. So let's say a child wants to go off to the university in another city, in another state, and the parent goes, well, what will I do? What will I do without you? And so the grim unconscious belief in that is, my mother's needs or my father's needs supersede mine. They're more important than mine. And I need to sacrifice myself in order to do that. So so then they end up not applying or, not going. So that would be a sort of a nice, simple example of a grim unconscious belief.
And I think that a lot of these grim unconscious beliefs are so, unconscious.
And they're so powerful.
Exactly. And it's what's driving us. And we don't even see what's driving us. And that's for me where something like psychotherapy with another person to actually discuss, hey, where is this coming from? Or the path of meditation to really quiet the mind to see what's operating right now. What is my operating system? Where is it coming from? And do I actually need to keep operating from this system?
Right.
And that's the thing about specifically meditation that really helped me is to slow down the mind, see what's going on here. Because for the most part, we're moving so fast in this day and age that life seems like a blur and our mind is like this amorphous cloud of static where it's like, I'm stressed and I have actually no idea why. And that's the thing. Slow down, simplify. Let's start to organize the mind and see where this suffering is coming from. And that's the hard part first for a lot of people, where they start to meditate and they're like, whoa, this sucks. I'm starting to see all of these, in my opinion, unskillful, painful stories that really hurt. And fuck, now I'm seeing my life for what it is. And a lot of people, when they start to see it, they're like, I don't like this. Can we just go back to ignorance? And for me on the spiritual path, it's sort of like Pandora's box. Once you get a certain level of awareness, you actually can't go back. You can't go back. You can only go forward.
You can't close that box.
Exactly. And that's a beautiful thing. And people are like, ignorance is bliss. And like, yeah, I wouldn't say bliss. I think deep existential freedom is bliss. But like, I think, ignorance feels good enough. Why? Because you don't have anything better to be relative to. And so when you're in that experience of ignorance, say, okay, you go clubbing, you drink a bunch, you chill with your friends, you're chilling in that style of relating, which, okay, nothing inherently wrong with that. I don't want to try to degrade that, but I'm just saying when you start to become aware of all the ways that we are unconsciously torturing ourselves, that's hard. And a lot of people stop there, but actually the beautiful thing is they actually can't stop forever because it won't go away until you really give those painful narratives the attention that they're asking for. Because again, they're asking you to see something. And that's the thing. Any pain and suffering that's going on in our mind and in our experience, we can view it as a messenger that is actually asking something from us. Can I learn how to integrate this? For instance, I get broken up with. It's really painful. Can I spend time with that to learn something? Because that pain is trying to teach you. It's like imagine you're like a block of marble and you're getting chiseled by creation. God itself is chiseling you. That kind of hurts. And you're like, oh, ouch, 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 ouch. And then you turn out like the statue of David. And we're like, and the whole time we're like, fuck, I wish I wasn't getting chiseled. And then you turn out to be miraculously beautiful. And that's the thing. Can we open to that pain? Recognizing that's part of the beauty of entering into that crucible. That is the spiritual path, is coming to this point of honesty. And again, so just to map out that path as I've experienced it, it is like, okay, first you start to see all the unskillful, really painful stories and you're like, oh shit, this sucks. Now what? And it's like, keep going, keep spending time with them and actually learn how to hold it as it is. That's a big part of meditation, is this notion of equanimity.
And holding.
Exactly. Not pushing away. And that's the thing. So in meditation, obviously, if you sit daily or you go on retreats, like these, specifically on retreats, these demons are going to keep coming up. And the way that I really have experienced it is on retreat. So you're sitting 8 hours a day for like a week straight. You're not talking to anybody, very with yourself. Everything that you can come to terms with in your mind, life, death, ending relationships, uncertainty, everything you can come to terms with actually comes and goes through the being. You can let it go because you've come to terms with it. And eventually, like day 6 or 7 of the retreat, you are only left with the things in your mind that you cannot accept, that you're actually still holding on to. And because you're holding on to them, they're holding on to you back. And it's such a beautiful experience. For day 6 and 7, I'm like broken in tears. I'm like wandering around the Zen center, finding a place to sob because like that broken. And it's like, it's so beautiful. And I could cry right now thinking about it because those are the things that we've avoided our whole lives. And these are beliefs about what death is, beliefs about my past trauma, beliefs about uncertainty, beliefs about my own value. And being able to see those things and to hold them hurts. And the tears are the way through. And that's the thing. People say the tears are bad. No. The tears are how we integrate those parts of ourselves that we've kept at arm's length for so long.
Did you have to learn how to be okay with crying?
That's one of the gifts that I've had. I've always been deeply emotional and deeply sensitive. And there's pros and cons to that. And I've found definitely early in my life, I wasn't able to do it as much. One of the things that really helped me was actually like psychedelics and mushrooms, specifically good doses of mushrooms, being up in the mountains by myself. And I love going on big runs, mountain biking trips, backcountry camping in the mountains, and just eating a bunch of mushrooms and sitting with yourself. And those things open you up. And you're forced to just see it. And everything is bared to creation. And you're like, fuck, what do I do? I guess I just hold this. I have no choice. And that there's so much healing in that when I can just sob. And it makes me think of my most recent breakup that happened in May. Actually, like right as I graduated grad school. It was pretty fucked up. We were like living together. And it ended up, we just had a little argument. She's like, why don't you stay at your apartment tonight? And I was like, okay. And I woke up to a text the next day at 4 a.m, and she said, all your stuff is outside, pick it up whenever you can. And I was like, what? And so it just ended like that. I never talked to her again. I've reached out.
Whoa.
And it was really painful. And
that's worse than my breakup.
I don't know.
Thought I had the worst.
You had the 35-year relationship. This one really hurt. I mean, we weren't together for that long, but it was enough where it still hurts. And I remember I couldn't cry. It's like I felt this lump in my throat for months. And I also couldn't connect with people. Like I had no desire to connect intimately with anyone after that for months. And I remember it was only when I went in the mountains and I did some psycho shit, because when I'm in pain, I need to do psycho shit physically. It reminds me of like Teddy Roosevelt. Like I think when he lost the second or third election he was running for, he like went to the Amazon.
Oh,
and, like,
right.
Everybody
almost
died.
Yeah,
he was like one of the only people that survived. And he just does crazy shit
Right.
when he's really hurting. And I feel the same way. There's something really healing about that pain.
Yeah.
But so I went into the mountains. I went to this place called Lost Creek Wilderness, just kind of west of Denver. And I ran this like 25-mile loop. And I remember it's like the last 4 or 5 miles and I'm like exhausted. I didn't bring enough food. So I'm like kind of walking at this point. And it was right after this crazy hailstorm. So I was also like on like a decent amount of acid, like some mushrooms. So I'm like very open in this place, flowing, having a great time, having a great run. I get hit with this crazy like hail and lightning storm.
Ooh.
And I'm in a t-shirt and shorts. And I'm like, okay, it's like hailing. It's pretty cold. If I get soaked to the bone out here, I could actually die.
Not to mention the lightning.
Not to mention the lightning.
Yeah.
And so I'm like under this like little spruce tree. It's like really hailing. And there was no hail or rain on the forecast. And I still have like probably like 5 or 7 miles to go at this point. So a little more than 4. I remember this stretch of the trail. I've been here many times. And I remember being like, fuck, like if this keeps going, I might have to like find somebody to like help me, because I could actually die out here. So it was this really kind of intense experience. And luckily the hail stopped, and it was to the point where it's like hailing so much that there's like rivers going through the trail. Wow. And I'm like in a shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm like, this is fucked. And I remember I get out of that, and because I was like, am I gonna die out here? I was like getting really cold. I wasn't shaking yet, but I was like, oh, this is bad. And so eventually the hail stops, the lightning kind of moves on. It's still like rolling thunder in this place, and it's a gorgeous location. I love this wilderness area. And I remember I was like just kind of walking up this hill. I get to the top. It's like this beautiful vista. And something popped for me, whereas like I felt that lump in my throat that had been like kind of unable to be released for so long. And something in me was like, now's the time. This is it. And I remember I just like, it was like I was about to throw up. It's like your whole body's like about to do something. And I was like, now's the time. And I remember I just like took and like squatted down, and I just put my hand on this log, and I remember I just like sobbed for like 20 minutes. It was like so beautiful because there's still like this rolling thunder in the background. Wow. And I'm just wailing in this place and saying all the things that I wish I could have said to her, but I couldn't because she fucking won't get in touch with me. And I was just saying, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry for everything I did. I miss you. I shouldn't have been like that. And it was just, it felt like I was purging. Like, again, like there's tears, snot, this spit coming out of me. Like everything is being drained out of my face. And it was just like 20 minutes of that. And for me, it's like, again, this is probably my own kind of wounding in community where it was so difficult for me to like cry. Just even in my room, because like my roommates were around and like, I don't know. And even my friends would talk to me about like the breakup, and I couldn't let it out. It was only when I was alone, and specifically on those substances, that I had that big release. And so just to finish this story, because it's incredibly beautiful, actually. So I'm like wailing, and like my crying is like echoing off these canyons. And I remember if anyone's hearing this and there's just thunder in the background, I'm like, this is like honestly really dope. This is so cool. And it was just like this deep emotional purging. And I'm like going down the trail, and I go to this other beautiful stretch where I'm in this kind of forest of aspens, and the sun finally came out, and this is like a mile or two from my car. And I'm still on some mushrooms, but I remember I just turned around, I looked at the sun, and just immediately, it was like there was this direct contact with something beyond myself.
Oh, wow.
I looked at, like directly at the sun. It's the evening setting sun, so you can kind of look at it. And I remember I just like spontaneously started speaking and saying, thank you, I'm yours. Like for everything, like whatever you need, my life is in service to you. And I started speaking that, and I started to actually get like this confirmation of like being held, being heard, being witnessed, and something telling me thank you back. Actually,
it changed you.
Dude,
it changed.
It was so deep for me.
Wow.
Whereas like I had this crazy experience with like, am I gonna die? And then this huge emotional release, and then literally talking to God. And that's the thing. So when I say talking to God from the Buddhist lens, again, it's all empty. We have the choice to believe, is this just in my head? And I was like, no, I'm not going to fall for that kind of flat, cold experience. I'm going to lean into the enchanted here, and starting to actually have that dialogue, which was so nourishing for my being. And I remember just crying again, just literally talking to God and feeling these resonances in my like energy body of something like literally communicating to me. And I've had various experiences like that in my life. And again, from the Buddhist lens of emptiness, we make the world we experience. So if we want to choose to talk to God, no one can say otherwise, because that's just another empty belief. And if you choose to talk to God, what happens in your experience? You can step into that enchantment, into that poetry, into that divinity, and drink that nourishment. And it's not just conceptual, it affects your whole being. And then I get like back to my car and basically just whip it home. But yeah, I guess full circle, that was for me what I needed to let that pain out. And obviously, like you saw, there's still something there. There's still like, I wish I could talk to her. And that's happened a few times where I feel like I've just gotten ghosted by exes. And like, you know, like I know like I've hurt people in the past. I've learned every time how to make sure that doesn't happen again, because it fucking hurts me too. That's not how I want to operate. But that's the thing. It's just to lose that communication, to lose that connection, and say, hey, if things didn't work out, we can still talk about it. We can still be connected.
I haven't spoken to my ex-wife for 10 years. I've not seen her. Well, we had a dog together, the little dog. And so when he died, I sent her a text and said that he died. But that's the only communication I've had with her since then.
And how has that been for you?
Well, you were talking about you couldn't cry. Now, if you actually truly have the diagnosis of PTSD, you can't cry.
Whoa.
There's something that's one of the defining symptoms of, and I couldn't cry. And I felt like I went into this dissociative state, and I sort of feel psychotic. It was not like I wasn't hallucinating exactly, but people did look different, and the world just seemed different. I was in another dimension in a way.
Can you explain that experience a little bit more for people? So dissociation and sort of how it changed your perception of the world. Yeah,
it's like I somehow separated myself from the world, and I didn't feel much at all. But what I did feel was very weird. It was a very weird, strange feeling.
Something's off.
Something was just way off. And people just looked different to me, or I'd go, oh, that person is so lonely. Well, I'd had no idea, I didn't know they were lonely. But I just somehow it was, everything just seemed so different to me.
Do you think that experience of seeing others and having the story of like, oh, they look so lonely, do you think that could have been a mirror for your state?
Like a projection kind of thing? Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
And that's the thing too. It always reminds me like of this really belief in this practice that I've had for so long, which is recognize the way that you're treating others, recognize the way that you are viewing them, and maybe ask the question, is this a projection of my own view and experience of myself? Where the way that we treat others is often a reflection of the way we treat ourselves. And not always, but it's like,
Mhm.
are you treating others are you short with others? Do you get angry easily? Is everyone just not enough? Are you
Mhm.
so much better than everyone? Interestingly, when you think you're so much better than everyone, that's actually coming from a place of deep insecurity.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. For
Exactly.
me, it's like this whole notion of comparison of better or worse. It's unnecessary. When you're deeply whole with yourself, like same with gossip. Gossip is just so weak and it makes people small. That's the thing.
Well, see, I think there's sort of a cool kind of gossip too. That
Say more to that.
Well, just that there's a sense of community. You know, you have a
Yeah,
neighborhood, and people
yeah.
know, even if they know too much or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I know it can be vicious and awful. So I'm
Right,
not saying
right.
gossip is great, but
Yeah.
they're just. I've learned that gossip is something that kind of makes a community
Exactly.
feel part of a
I
community.
guess my whole thing with gossip is just do it with a high level of awareness,
Mhm.
self-awareness of how do
Mhm.
you feel when you're doing this.
Mhm.
If there's that contraction in the being, and you can feel it in your body,
Mhm.
if your psyche is contracting and you're just,
Mhm.
let's just say, talking shit about somebody else and they're not there,
Mhm.
you're not getting that refinement from somebody if they were there
Right.
to defend themselves.
Right.
And also there's that tightness in your being. And actually what that is doing is making you feel small. Or again, why are we gossiping? If I
Mhm.
feel deeply whole, I don't do it.
Mhm.
I bring everyone else up.
Mhm.
When I'm separate and alone and feeling small and less than, that's when let me try to bring somebody else down to try to feel big. And
Mhm.
actually what's interesting about gossip, and at least this really shitty form of gossip, because I'm with you. I mean,
Sure.
there's levels to it.
Yeah, you're not being hostile. I mean, you're just sort of like, guess what I know? You know, it's not a
Exactly.
bad thing to know. It's
Exactly.
just something that you know.
And that's the thing. I don't think there's a right or wrong here. It's just more of what feels good.
Mhm.
Like what feels like productive, beneficial for the being,
Mhm.
the overall health. And I
Mhm.
think for me, I found when I'm so whole in myself, well, I don't gossip, I don't talk shit. I actually just try to help because I'm enough. I don't need anything from anybody. And
Mhm.
that experience that I got, or how I found wholeness for myself was, and I think everyone's path is probably different, but it was by being alone, actually. Being alone in a relationship, and specifically, so while I was super depressed in undergrad, I actually ended up going to India and spending COVID there in an
Yeah,
ashram.
you told me about that.
Yeah, really
That's
serendipitous, trippy
Right.
cosmic experience that actually started me on this path.
Mhm.
And then I spent some time working on farms, doing construction, staying at different Zen centers, and it was just a lot of time alone.
In New Mexico. You're in New Mexico.
Exactly.
Which has
Yeah.
its own, influence on
Mexico
people.
does. I
Yeah.
love that place. Like I was at the Zen Center in Bodhimanda for a while, and I got to explore like the Jemez Mountains and Santa Fe Mountains, and
Mhm.
just that area and the desert there. It speaks in a really unique way.
Mhm.
Where Colorado, it hits hard. I love this place, but like New Mexico is the land of enchantment. There's something there, and it's like if you don't believe me, check it out.
I know.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
Yeah.
place. But yeah, finding that wholeness just by being with myself. And what comes up when I'm alone? When I'm like, am I enough? I'm not doing much with my life, like traditionally speaking. I'm just meditating and like just getting by and just traveling around. Is that okay? Can I come back to myself? All the people that are doing better than me, you know what I mean? Is that okay?
Mhm.
And can I come back to me? And like build those boundaries? Or yeah, other people are doing dope shit. Would that be fun? Yeah, totally would. But can I love this? And when I can say yes, and I mean deeply yes, then I feel so whole in myself where like, I just want to help people. And that's actually what took me on this path and made me the man that you see now, is I feel so whole in myself. And obviously it comes and goes now, but that period of life in particular, I'd felt so much shame, so much lack, so much worthlessness that when I felt that wholeness, it like really changed me. And I was like, oh, let me just let go of this thing right here called Ben, this ego, this separate self, and let me actually just live in service. And asking the question, what does that mean? And I think that's a really hard question for a lot of my friends to answer. A lot of people are just like trying to get by, trying to maximize their lives. But the hard question is, what does that mean to maximize your life? This brief window between birth and death. And I think there's an element of service where everything in creation, like, the trees bear fruit, the animals give fur, they spread seeds, they have songs, the flowers have scents and beauty. Everything is actually trying to give back to this place. And I think until we learn how to give back to this world that gave us everything, then something's going to be missing in the being. And this aligns with the bodhisattva ideal in Mahayana Buddhism, which is that I'm not free until everyone else is first. So really, let's let them get fully enlightened according to this archetype, really. And then I'll go behind them. And there's something so poetic and beautiful in that about what happens in the being when we can let go of like the self-obsession, which actually in the Buddhist view is actually a contraction of the psyche. The ego is actually due to a contraction and actually fear. I won't say too much about that, but it's interesting when we start to live in service, that knot in the psyche, that contraction starts to loosen. And all of the problems with the self, all of the fear, am I doing this right? What happens when I die? Do people like me? All of those problems just get dimmer because you're in service to something so much bigger than you.
Well, I sort of see present day life anyway here in the United States. There's a harshness to it that I have never experienced, and I didn't know it would happen in my lifetime. It's shocked me, but I think it has something to do with service to others and empathy for other people's situations. Yeah. There's just a hard-hearted self-centeredness that is come out, I think, in American society just recently.
Totally. I mean, especially like politically, I don't even want to touch that shit, to be honest.
Like, don't get me started.
Yeah, we won't touch that. But I'm with you, and I think that a lot of that actually comes from fear. And again, this is one of those other feedback loops where the more fear I feel, the more the psyche contracts and creates this sense of separation. And the more that we feel separate, the more we act from that place of separation and fear, really. And we actually just strengthen more fear. So it's almost like a knot. It's like a
negative
cramp.
Sexuality.
Yeah, negative sexuality. And that's,
right.
Yeah, exactly. And I do want to respect your time. And we actually have a podcast coming up after this. So I want to wrap things up in a minute.
Sure.
But this has been such a great conversation, Howard. And I'm really, honestly, just stoked that somebody like you exists. You're just such a bubbly, warm, older guy. And to hear your story is so honestly beautiful. To see you, again, stepping into that discomfort, stepping into that fear, listening to, for instance, your wife telling you she never loved you, the pain of that. And for you to be guided into this really unique path, which was the male modeling, the acting, the social media. And yeah, I want to give you a chance to maybe plug that social media, plug things you're doing.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm at Howard Snooks on Instagram, if you want to follow me on Instagram. And I think we're going to collaborate probably on this, aren't we? And so then I'll be able to post some of the
some juicy reels.
Some juicy
Yeah.
Right.
And thank you again so much for this. I really am thankful that you were willing to come on and have these beautiful conversations, and especially being at your age to see how similar we actually are. You know what I mean?
Well, when you turn 76 like I am, it's amazing that I'm that old. Like I can't, like I've been here over 7 decades on this work. And to me, things that happened 50 years ago, they don't really seem like, how can that be that it was 50 years ago? Wow. It's just this funny phenomenon about time as you get older.
Dude, my dad was telling me that too. So my dad is in his early 70s, and he said this, and I've heard this actually from other influencers that say, so time is relative. Yeah. Like most people know that, but in the period of time between like 10 years old and 20 years old, you have less life that's being lived.
Yeah, it's a percentage thing.
Right, it's a percentage thing. And then as life goes on, it actually seems to like gain momentum and feel quicker. Where for me, it's like the past 5 years, like since I was 24, boom, gone. Yeah. And I'm like, wait, it's going to get faster? And again, so this brings me back to...
It does get faster.
Right. This brings me back to life is going by like that. What do we want to do here? How do we want to give? Recognizing this form, this unique, beautiful being, Howard or Ben, it will be dust soon. Just like that. The blink of an eye. And what do we want to leave for this place that we really are? Recognizing we are, in a very non-dual sense, very spiritually, in my perspective, attuned sense. I am the trees, I am the clouds, I'm the rivers, I'm the kids running around, I am the dogs running around, I'm all of it. And at that point, what world do we want to create for future you in a different form, with a different mind, with a different family, future you?
Yeah, how can we be of service?
Exactly. And maybe just one last question for you is, I guess, little tips for people just to live a good life or to be of service.
Well, I think it's not like you can tell people to be empathic and expect them to be empathic, but if you can find it in yourself to be empathic to other people and to know that, like, sometimes when you hear mental health professional, a client is saying something, and the therapist will say, well, that makes sense, as if that was the question. Like, did it make sense? I'm telling you my experience. I'm not like asking you to judge if it makes sense or not.
Right.
Because and to me, that's a key of empathy, is you go, well, given who they are, I have to sort of figure out where they're coming from in terms of what they're expressing, not deciding if it's a right or wrong way, or a healthy or unhealthy way.
Totally. And I see that connection of, empathy is really just in the body. Yeah. It's this feeling, it's this resonance, it's holding space. Yeah. It's not saying, oh, you're right or wrong. That's all in the mind. When we're with someone, especially as therapists, and they're suffering, I feel like it is just, can I hold space for them in ways that maybe they can't hold space for themselves yet? And that's the thing. There's so much healing in that, and it's so simple.
Well, there's sort of a joke about, when therapists are talking to their clients, because there's these stereotype things like, that must be hard for you, or tell me more, that sound like they're totally useless comments, but they end up being the most valuable things.
Or like, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
It's so cliche, but like, again, maybe they haven't actually thought about that, how it makes you feel. Like, actually, that's a good question. How does that make me feel?
That happens more often than you
think. And that's the thing. Therapy, it really does seem so simple. And that's the thing. And we can do that for others, and then we can do that for ourselves, and I think it starts with us. And the whole thing, you can't give what you don't have. So we could talk forever, and I'm sure I would love to do another conversation with you at some point. But
sounds good.
Howard, thank you again so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Ben.
All right.